Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm a huge fan of Michael Saylor. I mean, in the last 5 years, I can't even imagine how many videos and interviews and that I've listened to. I mean, he is, in my mind, has been and still is probably the loudest voice in the Bitcoin space. And in terms of furthering your Bitcoin knowledge and education and what this asset represents, I think we can all agree that he's probably number one, and has been for the past few years. I guess, I don't spend a lot of time studying, the financial engineering side of things and the way that he's able to, to access capital at what, close to zero in order to acquire Bitcoin. And I kind of understand a little bit the early stages of why he went into Bitcoin, and the fact that MicroStrategy was a 30-year-old sort of company that was really going nowhere. And what did it have in the bank? Was it 500 million or something in 2020?
Yep.
Yeah, and he realized that he's on a fast kind of death to nowhere with that amount of cash in the bank, and
the melting ice cube was kind of that was
and so all of that, and seeing him be the first, to really go after Bitcoin as a treasury asset, and then the fact that he gave his shareholders the opportunity to to sell out at a premium or to stay in for this journey, and those that have stayed in have obviously done very, very well. I know that there's people out there, the likes of George Bodine. I'm a huge fan of George, and he's studied this a lot more than I have, and he's a great believer that Strategy B is going to become the world's first Bitcoin bank. But then you listen to Saylor, and very recently someone asked him if that's his goal, and he said, "Well, no, we're just going to build products on top of Bitcoin." So I don't know where this is all going. I actually thought that, yes, it's quite clear that Strategy B is just going to become a Bitcoin bank, and play fiat games on top of Bitcoin. So I don't know, man. But what I know is that I've started to sort of transition my thinking in relation to Bitcoin a lot more in the last probably 6 to 12 months, in the sense that, Michael Saylor is a massive advocate for, owning Bitcoin for 100 years or 1,000 years and never selling it. And, why would you ever sell the best asset on earth to go into what, for the second best or the third best, or heaven forbid, a fiat currency? And I do get all of that. But the thing that worries me is this nagging realization that Bitcoin was designed to actually be a medium of exchange. And I know that Satoshi sacrificed speed for decentralization and security. And I think Hal Finney and those early players, they spoke about this. We have to sacrifice something for this. And so on the base layer, we understand that Bitcoin as a transactional medium of exchange, monetary instrument, it's not going to work, right? It's just far too slow. But we know that we have these layer 2 solutions that are going to enable all of that. And so the only thing I worry about when it comes to Michael Saylor, I can't really speak to the financial engineering and how all of that works. It's way above my pay grade. And I do understand that, there's MetaPlanet and 21 Capital, and they're all kind of lining up to do the same stuff. But, I just worry that it's going to kind of move us away from what I keep saying, and that is that we need to be focused on the fact that Bitcoin is sovereign money. It's people's money. It was designed to be the life raft, the escape hatch from these fiat games, from this debt-based system. And I just don't want people to get so swept up in Is MicroStrategy outperforming Bitcoin? I better put my money into that, because you don't really own the Bitcoin. So, yeah, I hope that kind of gives you some perspective on my take. I love Michael Saylor. He's a genius. I could listen to him all day, all week, all night. I could listen to him forever. but I just worry that sometimes, I think about where this is all going and the fact that maybe we're moving away from what really Bitcoin was designed to do, and that there's enough solutions coming, these layer twos, that are going to enable us to actually utilize Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, not just a store of value. And it doesn't just mean, selling the worst asset in order to go and buy an ice cream. It's not about that. It's just understanding that we can actually function in a parallel economy, right? Where we can exchange value in Bitcoin. And so that's what I would like to see. And I just worry that people who only spend their time listening to what's going on in that, financialization, engineering space of Bitcoin, they're kind of missing the hallmarks of what Bitcoin truly represents and maybe getting distracted from that. And this is why I keep returning to, the likes of Jeff Booth and, Tony Yazbek and these people, because they bring you back to center with what Bitcoin is meant to be. So yeah, that's my take.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think this is the nuance of Bitcoin. And we've talked about this layers, and just this whole talk has been about personal development, personal growth, the layers, understanding, learning. And that's really a story of life to a large degree. But this is one of those things here too, where one of the definitions of genius, at least in my book, it's coming from that personal development world, is being able to hold two opposing opinions in your head at the same time. And being able to accept that and adapt and say, yes, that is true. Two things can be true at one time. And like you just outlined, we have to get back to this idealistic world of, hey, we want all the plebs in there, as many as possible. We got to be educating on the right ethics, morals, values of how this should be, while at the same time understanding that Michael Saylor is doing amazing good for it. He's probably, like you said, orange pilled and educated more people on Bitcoin than anybody at this point now, after 5 years of him being, or almost 5 years, him being in the space. So I think that, but there comes risk with that. There's trade-offs of life, right? So it's like people, him doing his job of, hey, I have a public company, I'm doing what I can to acquire more Bitcoin. It's also can lead people down this path where maybe you're getting astray of the ethos of Bitcoin and the cypherpunk ethos. So, but that we know that was always going to be the end game, where the Trojan horse has to get inside the walls at some point of the government or whatever. I mean, Hal, like you said, Hal, the early cypherpunks talked about this very thing. So it's not that no one's thought of it, but it's just understanding two things can be true. So I love the way you put that. It's just so nuanced. What is the most fascinating aspect of Bitcoin to you? Like, what's the biggest innovation in Bitcoin? Is it the self-custody aspect? Is it proof of work? Tying the digital world to physical energy? Is the difficulty adjustment? Capturing the first time we've had a money where we can capture our finite time and energy in this perfect container and hold it. What's the thing to you that's the most fascinating, the most intriguing part of Bitcoin itself?
Yeah, I think all those things, Brandon. I mean, for me, I just keep coming back to the fact that it is the only truly finite asset and monetary protocol that we've ever seen, and even gold we know has a 2% inflation rate, and so when you're able to actually protect and preserve your financial energy into a monetary protocol that cannot be debased, that cannot be printed, that cannot be corrupted, that to me is transformational stuff. That has the ability to change the world and our incentive structure and the ability for us to return to how life's meant to be. And that is not working our ass off for 50 years and then waking up one day and realizing that we haven't got enough to support ourselves for the rest of our life. Not looking at our kids in their 20s and saying, well, we're sorry we sold out the future for you guys because we extracted all of the value and the wealth out of the housing system so that you guys can't afford a home. You know, all of these issues now that are a function of broken money and that realization that we now have a choice to opt in a new direction, to opt out of that system and to start storing our value in a system that respects us, honors us, has integrity, is based on truth, has rules, but no rulers. You know, that for me is the biggest reason for people to be paying attention to Bitcoin. And I think once people understand that one thing and the fact that life is not meant to be, you know, a mouse on a wheel in the rat race for, you know, 30, 40, 50 years and then waking up one day and realizing that you just did all this for nothing. You know, it's not to say that some people don't build phenomenal lives for themselves and create a massive difference in the world and create great wealth. And yes, we know all that. You know, but the Bitcoin is a system of money where everybody gets to win. You know, and we just have to understand that the more that we start moving in this direction, and you and I both know that it doesn't matter whether you or I are in Bitcoin or not. Bitcoin can't be stopped. Like Bitcoin really doesn't care whether we're in. I'm sure Bitcoin, if it was an entity that could actually talk to us, it would be very grateful for the fact that it doesn't have a marketing department and you and I are here on opposite sides of the world, you know, sharing knowledge with people, helping to educate, helping to drive people to this sound money. But it's just that realization, you know, that people, if people could only see that life doesn't have to be difficult, it's not meant to be hard. We're not meant to be trading our time and energy for a currency that is broken, and now we have a choice. And I think everything else from that is a process to learn and develop a skill set. It's a basic skill set to understand, okay, what do you do after that? I get it. I understand this is sound money. I'm going to start moving towards that. That's step one. And then from there, once you've got that knowledge, that conviction, that understanding that this is where the world is going, you can start moving into the other steps that help you to become self-sovereign, which is ultimately what Bitcoin is designed for. You know, it's freedom money. And I think as time goes on, the world's going to wake up to this.
For those that are 35 years older, you know, maybe 35, 40 years old and up, could even say, you know, Gen X, you know, boomers, what would be your words of advice if there are those that are hesitant to jump into Bitcoin, whether they think, you know, they hear thousands of hours of work, learning, education, people might be intimidated by that and all that goes into that. What would be your words of advice or encouragement to someone that's, you know, like we were talking offline earlier about trying to get people to help them retire early, retire with dignity, actually have a retirement, not even to retire wealthy, but just to have it, because we know what fiat and governments, we know what that end game looks like. So what would be your advice to someone kind of looking out and saying, like, I wonder if I'm gonna be able to do that someday?
Yeah, I think, you know, in terms of round numbers, you know, like I think everybody who's at this stage in their life who wants to live a comfortable retirement and never have to worry about money again, you know, and I think we all deserve that. You know, most people have done all the right things over the course of their life. And if they've got to, you know, their mid-30s, 40s, even 50s, and they're kind of starting to contemplate, you know, the meaning of life, you know, have I done the right things in terms of have I made the right decisions tactically in terms of my financial life, so that over the next, 15 years, when I finally decide that, gee, I no longer want to have to work anymore. Maybe I do want to work because I love it, or I want to do something that's going to allow me to, do something I'm passionate about. But how am I going to do that? And so I just really encourage people to take a good look at the trajectory you're on financially, really assess your situation. Everybody's different. Maybe take a look at your retirement savings and ask yourself where that's going to be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, if it continues performing the way that it is. Most people don't look at their retirement accounts until it's basically too late, because unfortunately in Australia, and I'm sure it's the same in the US, but in Australia, we've got this superannuation system, which essentially is out of sight, out of mind for most people. They're not paying attention to it over the course of their working life. They know that there's money being paid by their employer over the course of years and decades, but they're just trusting that when they get to 60 or 65, that they're going to have enough, right? But the reality is, in this country, I was looking at some statistics the other day. The Australian Superannuation Fund Association puts out stats every year, and the latest statistics are that the average Australian who reaches 60 to 64 years of age, and in this country, the retirement age is 65, generally speaking, but the average person only has, for women it's 300,000 and for men it's 400,000. So 300,000 to 400,000 Australian dollars is what people have in their retirement accounts on the cusp of retirement. And the reality is, in this inflationary world we're in, it's just not enough. Mm-hmm. They then go on to say that it's going to take the average individual about $55,000 a year just for basic necessities. And, we need to then take into account they also have to pay rent. Are they still paying off a mortgage? All of these kinds of things. But you don't have to be Einstein to work out, if you've only got $300,000 or $400,000 sitting in your bank, in your retirement fund, and it's going to cost you, $55,000, $60,000 a year, what are you going to do once that money runs out? And so this then leads us into a conversation about preparing now. If you've got a 10 to 15 year time horizon, and you can find a way to get yourself to 0.1 of a Bitcoin, 10 million Satoshis, which is going to cost you today around about that $10,000 US mark. And then we look at the historical CAGR, compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin, and we start plugging that figure in, that 50%. If you want to be more conservative, go with 40%. If you want to be even more conservative, go with 30%. But just plot yourself a path with where you want to be in 15 years from now, because if you are in your mid-30s or your 40s, maybe you want to retire early. Maybe you don't want to wait till you're 60 or 65, and so you can set yourself up for life with a 15-year time horizon without giving away the farm if you start allocating to Bitcoin as quickly as possible. Most people can beg, borrow, or steal $10,000 to get started in this asset. When I talk to most people, or most people that I consult with, they have access generally to either underperforming superannuation fund that they want to roll over into a self-managed super fund so that they can then buy Bitcoin, because one of the issues in this country is that if you have an industry superannuation fund, you can't get any exposure to Bitcoin. And even if you can, you can't bring it into self-custody. Whereas if you roll over that industry superannuation fund into a self-managed superannuation fund that you control, you can then buy Bitcoin and you can bring it into self-custody. And so this is a big thing going on right now where people are starting to realize, who are paying attention, superannuation funds, they're seemingly under attack. I can take control of my super, even if people want to still have their, stock or share portfolios, buy some blue chip companies and that kind of a thing. They can still do that, but they can also get a meaningful allocation to Bitcoin and take that Bitcoin into self-custody through an SMSF. A lot of people don't realize it, but now they're starting very quickly to realize that. And this is why the self-managed super fund industry in this country, they are under siege right now. They're flat out. They're just people just moving really, really fast to try and get their money out of superannuation into these self-managed, because people don't trust. They don't trust the system. They don't know what's going to be in 5 years, 10 years from now, but they can see where things are going. And so, in a nutshell, I would say, if you have a superannuation fund, think very seriously about getting that into self-managed so that you can get an allocation to Bitcoin, because most people, if they're in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, generally speaking, they've got a good chunk in their super fund. Get that rolled over into an SMSF, get yourself some Bitcoin, get it into self-custody, which you can do. And then, and if not, then just get yourself to 0.1 as quickly as you can by doing whatever hustle you've got to do to just get that allocation. And I think, I really think that once people get to that 0.1, if they do the steps, which is to buy the Bitcoin, custody the Bitcoin, get themselves to the next level in terms of the sovereignty aspect of it, I really think that people will then develop that confidence to then go, you know what, I'm going to allocate some more, and I'm going to allocate some more. So 0.1 is kind of the only becomes the start of it, and people start really going on a journey of stacking, their way to an early retirement or a comfortable retirement, depending on their time horizon. So, it's just comes back to people really having that light bulb moment that Bitcoin is a solution from the debt-based fiat system, but it's all about taking action while you still can.
If you like that clip, then you definitely got to check out this next spicy clip. I think you're really going to like it. Come on, check it out. But if you want the full version, the full interview, then check that out over here. Come on, do it. I'll see you in there.